Searching for my first love after 18 years. The beautiful girl in this photograph was named Guizhou. Looking at this picture today, it is hard to believe that 18 years have passed since I last saw her. Back then, I was a young highway construction worker assigned to a project in the mountains of Guizhou, China. I never imagined that a simple encounter in a small village would become the most unforgettable chapter of my life. At the time, I was 25 years old and constantly traveling from one construction site to another. Building roads and bridges was my job, and moving from place to place had become a normal part of my life. Our team had been stationed in a remote mountain village for several months, working on a new highway that would eventually connect the region to nearby cities. The village itself was beautiful beyond words. Towering green mountains surrounded it from every direction. Crystal clear streams flowed through the valleys, birds sang from the trees, and the fresh mountain air carried the scent of wildflowers and farmland. It felt like a place untouched by time. One evening, after finishing work, I decided to take a walk through the village. As I followed a narrow path near a small stream, I noticed a young woman washing clothes by the water. She had long black hair, a simple outfit, and a warm smile that immediately caught my attention. That was the first time I met Guizhou. At first, our interactions were nothing more than polite greetings. Whenever we crossed paths, we would exchange a few words and continue on our way. But as the weeks passed, those brief conversations slowly turned into longer discussions. I soon learned that Guizhou had been one of the brightest students in her school. Many people believed she could have built a successful career in the city, but she chose to stay in the village because she loved her home, her family, and the peaceful life she had always known. As time went on, our friendship grew stronger. I often visited her family's house after work. Sometimes she cooked local dishes for me. Other times we walked along the village paths together, talking about everything from childhood memories to dreams for the future. She told me about the places she hoped to visit someday. I told her about my plans to build a better life and perhaps start my own construction company one day. For the first time in my life, I realized that happiness wasn't only about money, promotions, or success. Sometimes happiness came in the form of a person who made every ordinary day feel extraordinary. Before I knew it, I had fallen in love with Guizhou. One quiet evening, we sat together on a hill overlooking the village. The moon hung high above us, bathing the mountains in silver light. The night was calm, and the only sound came from the distant flow of the stream below. After a long silence, I finally gathered the courage to speak. Guizhou, I think I've fallen in love with you. For a moment, she didn't say a word. Then a gentle smile appeared on her face. I wait for you every day too, she replied softly. At that moment, my heart felt lighter than it ever had before. That was the beginning of our love story. But life rarely follows the path we expect. 6 months later, the highway project was completed. One morning, my company informed me that I would be transferred to another province immediately. The news hit me like a storm. Everything I had built in that village suddenly felt as if it were slipping away. The day before I left, I met Guizhou near the same stream where we had first spoken. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Will you forget me?" she asked quietly. "Never," I answered without hesitation. "Then will you come back?" I looked into her eyes and nodded. "Yes. I promise." For the first time, she held my hand tightly. "I'll wait for you," she whispered. The next morning, I left the village. For the first few months, we stayed in touch through letters and occasional phone calls. But life soon became complicated. A work accident caused me to lose my phone and many important documents. Shortly afterward, my company transferred me to several different construction sites across the country. Days became months. Months became years. 1 year turned into 2. 2 became 5. Before I realized it, 10 years had passed. I tried many times to find Guizhou again, but every attempt ended in failure. Life changed dramatically around me. Cities grew larger. Technology advanced. People came and went. Yet one thing never changed. My memories of Guizhou. Every time I saw a mountain village, I thought of her. Every time it rained, I remembered the evening we shared a single umbrella. Every time I heard a love story, I remembered the promise I had failed to keep. Then one day, everything changed. While cleaning out old boxes in my storage room, I discovered a collection of photographs from my younger years. Among them was a picture of Jiari. The moment I saw her face, memories flooded back into my mind. 18 years had passed. I stared at the photograph for a long time. Then I said to myself, if I don't go now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. At that moment, I made a decision. I was going to find her. A few days later, I began the long journey back to the village where our story had started. When I finally arrived, I barely recognized the place. The village had changed. Many of the old wooden houses had been replaced by modern buildings. New roads connected areas that once could only be reached on foot. Some landmarks remained familiar, while others had completely disappeared. Holding Jiari's photograph in my hand, I began asking people if they knew her. "Do you know this woman?" I asked. Most people shook their heads. Some said they weren't sure. Others told me she might have moved away long ago. But I refused to give up. After several hours of searching, an elderly woman studied the photograph carefully. Then her eyes widened. "Of course I know her," she said. My heart nearly stopped. "You do?" The woman nodded. "That's Jiari. She still lives here." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "Where?" She pointed toward a hill overlooking the village. "See that large house up there? That's where she lives." My heart began racing. Every step toward that house felt heavier than the last. Questions flooded my mind. Would she recognize me? Had she married someone else? Did she remember the promise we made all those years ago? Finally, I stood in front of the house. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A few moments later, it opened. A woman stood before me. Time had changed her appearance slightly. She looked older, wiser, and more mature. But her eyes were exactly the same. I recognized them instantly. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then tears slowly filled her eyes. "Is it really you?" she asked. My voice trembled. "Yes. I came back." She stared at me as if she were looking at a dream. 18 years later, she whispered. I lowered my head. "I'm sorry." She remained silent for a moment. Then she smiled gently. "Some things in life are beyond our control." She invited me inside. For hours, we sat together and talked about everything that had happened over the years. She told me that her parents were now elderly. She had stayed in the village and opened a small guest house for travelers. The business was doing well, and she seemed content with her life. Eventually, I gathered enough courage to ask the question that had haunted me throughout the entire journey. "Are you married?" She became quiet. For a few moments, she simply looked out the window toward the mountains. Then she shook her head. "No." I was stunned. "Why not?" She smiled faintly. "Because a person only experiences true love once in their lifetime." My eyes filled with tears. Neither of us spoke after that. Some feelings are simply too deep for words. As evening approached, the sun slowly disappeared behind the mountains. Golden light painted the sky. We sat together outside her house, watching the sunset in silence. The promise that had remained unfinished for 18 years had somehow brought us back together. At that moment, I finally understood something important. True love does not surrender to time. Years may pass. Distances may grow. Lives may change. But when love is genuine, it remains alive somewhere deep within the heart. And sometimes, even after 18 years, it finds its way back home.